No matter how much we talk about self love, we always want to know more about it. To take this conversation deeper, let me have the pleasure of introducing Narmada Rao, psychologist, NLP trainer, co founder of Master Yourself Academy, who has facilitated NLP training for more than 12,000 people across 30 different countries. She has authored 4 books, released more than 200 blogs, podcasts, and YouTube videos. Hi, Narmada. Welcome.
Hello, Merlin. You forgot to introduce yourself. Allow me the pleasure to introduce you too. This is Merlin, software techie by profession, dancer by passion, and dons many hats, very creative. So, yeah, thank you, Merlin.
Oh, thank you. I'm so privileged that you got to say that. So, talking about self love, what is your opinion about self love? What is your definition?
Right. So, I think over the last so many years, one thing that has constantly been coming to me is, what self-love. I can't love myself. I can love everybody else, but I just don't seem to be able to do that for myself. And often self-love is also treated as something that is exclusive, that I love myself, and then there is I love you, and it's treated as something very exclusive, and which is what that delineation makes it even more difficult, I think, for us to even feel that love towards ourselves. In my opinion, I think self-love is something that's very inclusive. It is not exclusive. It is not something that is, oh, I love myself and then I love you. It is not that. I think love is love. So if you have a feeling of love, then you will feel it first within. If you're unable to feel that love within, my psychology professor used to tell me, Tina Fernandez, she used to always tell us, girls, fill your love buckets first before you get out there into the world. And that sentence just stuck by all of us. Fill your love bucket. Because imagine we all go out with empty buckets every single day, expecting somebody else to come and fill that with love. And they may be willing also. But what happens is when my bucket is empty, I will naturally operate from a place of fear, isn't it? Because I'll say, I want love, but what if accidentally you break my bucket? And because of
Right.
that fear, we prevent even receiving that love that is coming from somebody else. And that's the
True.
whole disadvantage of it. So when you go with an empty bucket, you neither can give love to somebody freely, nor can you accept love freely. But if you put something in that bucket yourself before you step out from your house, fill your bucket with love. And then when you step out, you're not stepping out from a place of insufficiency. You're stepping
Right.
out feeling sufficient. So you will not operate on a defense mode or a threat mode or a fear mode. Because the minute I operate on any of those modes, right, all you have to do is not say hi to me. And I can go down the drain saying, oh no, Merlin is ignoring me. I must be a sad person. I must be a boring person. And I will play all these dramas within my own head. Why? Because my bucket was empty. Now, just imagine if I fill my bucket with love first thing in the morning before I even step out, before I even interact with anybody else. Now, when you don't say a good morning to me, I'll say, oh, I wonder if she saw me, or maybe she's preoccupied with something, or I wonder if she's having a tough day. Now, I'm not going to look at the world through a jaundiced eye. My father used to say that. He used to say, Nana, maybe you're looking at the world through a jaundiced eye. And I thought, wow, am I? And yes, that's exactly what happens when my love bucket is empty because I'm always operating from that fear of what if I don't get love? What if I get rejected? What if I get broken? So, self love in simplest terms is making sure that you take care of yourself just as well as you take care of somebody else. What happens
Yeah.
is, for us, it's sorry, you were saying?
I understand how one has to feel.
Yeah.
That one has to operate from a place of love and not from a place of fear. Uh, how can one practice to actually operate from a place of love?
So, right. So, I had to come inside because it was just about to start raining. I didn't want to risk it. Anyway, so the question that you were asking was
How do we practice self-love on
yes,
day-to-day
right,
basis?
right. Great question. So, usually when you say you love somebody else, what is it that you give to them? How do you show your love?
I show up. I give my time. I support
Okay,
them.
right,
I'll make sure I take care of them. I yeah, I'll be with them whenever
right.
they are in need of me.
Only when they're
Right.
in need of you?
Otherwise as well.
Exactly. So the first things first, whenever we say we're in love with somebody or whatever that is, when we love somebody, the first and the biggest and the most important thing without which love cannot exist is time.
That's right.
If you are not willing to give your time to somebody who you say that you love, then there is no way of showing that you love unless you give time. How much time? It depends. But if you are not able to give any of your time, then there's no way to show love, isn't it?
Exactly.
Exactly. So when it comes to loving yourself too, it is no different. You have to give yourself that time. If you are not, if you are not going to give time to yourself, sometimes, in the name of companionship and relationship and all of that, we are literally running away from ourselves like as if, oh my God, monster, run. We call it loneliness. No. When you are with yourself, how come you are unable to enjoy your company as much as you're able to enjoy your presence in somebody else's company? I remember my mother telling us this when we were kids. Anytime we said we were bored, she used to say, if you are so bored being with yourself, imagine how boring others must be finding.
That's funny.
Yeah, and I thought that was true. If I'm
Right.
unable to enjoy my company, how in the world will I get somebody else to enjoy my company, isn't it?
Right.
So the first things first is give yourself the time. It's not that you have to spend hours with yourself, but some time. Because when you're with somebody, you enjoy conversations, you enjoy quiet time as well, right? So
Yeah.
even when you're with yourself.
Yeah. When you're talking about being with someone else and being with ourselves, the difference is the quiet time. You're not quiet when we are with someone else. We're
Mhm.
doing something, we are talking, or there's something happening. But when we are with ourselves, it's a lot of quiet we'll have to deal with, isn't
Really? Is
it?
your mind really ever quiet?
Uh, no, there's something happening all the time.
Exactly. But we don't want to pay attention to what is happening here. We'd rather spend that time paying attention on what's happening outside of us. It's like we're trying to
Right.
escape looking inward and having that connect and that conversation. Yeah, our mind is actually never quiet. It is always up
Right.
to something. How come we are not intrigued to find out what's happening here as much as we're intrigued to find out what's happening in others' mind, what's happening in others' lives? We're so curious about others' stories. How come we're not curious about the kind of stories that we cook up for ourselves through the entire time? And unless you understand yourself, there is no way you can understand another person, isn't it?
Very
Because
true.
if whatever I see in the other person is the reflection of what I'm going through. So if I
Correct.
don't love myself, I don't understand myself, I don't spend that time with myself, being with somebody else is an excuse to run. It is not called companionship, it is called escape.
Right. How can one know that they are not overdoing self-love? Um, because when you say self-love, it kind of feels like um, one can be self-centered. Is
Right.
it too much for me?
The
Questions like that.
thing, right. So the thing with love is, if it's actual love, love only creates a sense of blissfulness within you. If
Okay.
it is creating anything other than blissfulness, that means it is not love. You cannot overdo in love. You can overdo in insufficiencies, insecurities, fears, wanting or needing something, you can overdo it. But love is something that you cannot actually overdo even if you want to, because you always know what is required, what's the need. You will go by what is essential there rather than doing what you think is required. If you notice,
Right.
people who have that kind of love, they're usually very calm also.
Right.
They don't get drawn into other people's, uh, you know, dramas as easily because they're very assured. There is no
Level-headed.
yeah, they're level headed. Yeah, there is no overdoing. When you're in a state of love, you are in that state of calmness, and your calmness is the most powerful gift or a weapon, whichever way you'd like to see it. Because the
Right.
calmer you are, the better the influence on yourself, the better the influence on others.
Right.
So you cannot possibly overdo if you are actually in a state of love.
Um, how about one? if I'm trying to do something for myself and I'm not giving or sharing, I'm like, this is my me time, so I'm not going to do or give anything to anyone else, and I'm just staying there for a long time. How do I know I'm not self-centered? That's still
Right.
a question.
Yes. So the question here arises because we're calling it self-love, which means self is involved, which means it's a alien word. It's I'm alienating myself from you, and I say I have to love myself and then I have to love you. So which means I'm creating that distinction.
Correct.
If you drop self from the word, it is love, right? I
Correct.
love myself, I love you, I love you, I love myself. It's like learning to ride a bike. When you learn to ride a bike, you can ride any bike, correct? If you learn to ride a
Right.
bike on a Hero or a Hero Honda, it does not mean you can only ride a Hero Honda bike. You can drive any other bike. The
Right.
skill is the same. So when you know how to love, you will love whether it is yourself or somebody else. The skill is the same.
Right.
But the minute you call it self-love, right there, that distinction comes off. It is me versus them. It is them versus me. It is my time versus your time. So now I've lost all the commonness. I'm actually trying to create a mutually exclusive love. It's not an inclusive love. When it is exclusive, it is not love either. Some people, they're very, very critical about themselves. Some people are very, very appreciative of themselves. Both of which are insecure. Someone who's not appreciative of themselves naturally is insecure. Somebody who's over appreciating themselves is also coming from a place of insecurity. Otherwise, why will they want to validate themselves so much? So you will never overdo. Sorry.
Yeah.
So you will never overdo if it is a place of love. You will know what is love, and you will have a state of blissfulness within you at all points in time.
I totally agree with that. Where did I come from is whenever or sometimes when I think I will have to spend some time for myself, I was blamed saying, you're not taking care of someone else. But I know from my heart that this is something that I need, and without which I'm not going to be productive for someone else. And that's when I couldn't distinguish between am I being self-centered or am I actually spending time for myself? So when I come across such people in my life, be it my own loved ones, because of various conditioning, of course, they come from a place of love themselves. They mean well, but it comes across in a different way that hurts. Though what I'm doing is, though I know what I'm doing is right. So how do I handle such situations where I know what I'm doing is self-love, but I'm unable to share that information with someone I'm with?
Again, drop off self-love. Just say love.
Okay.
Because the self-love is what is causing the entire things to go this way, that way, right? So let's just say love, okay? So when I'm in a state of love, I know what is required of me in any given situation, whether it is to do with myself or with somebody else in my immediate environment.
Okay.
That is only when I'm operating from a place of love. If I say self-love, then I'll say I have to prioritize me over you. It creates a conflict already within me. And then if somebody has to simply point one finger and that's it, hell breaks loose on my head.
Yes, it triggers.
Exactly. Why? Because I'm already somewhere triggered on that. Because I'm saying it's me versus you. Drop that self-love. Say I'm a loving person. It doesn't matter to you or to me. Love is the place where I operate from. So right now, if I feel like, oh my gosh, if I do one more thing, I think I'm just going to collapse, and it's important that I have to take care of myself right now, then I'm going to say I'm taking care of. I'm just going to do what is required there. But if I have to prove it to somebody else, that becomes a very uphill task, because each person comes from their own sense of fears and insecurities. I can take care of mine, but I don't know where they're coming from. And if I try to prove something to them, that means I don't trust myself enough. That's why I have to constantly keep proving to them and get their validation. The more I try to engage with that, the more they'll try to question me.
Right.
And the more they question me, the more I feel like wanting to validate myself with them. It's never ending. It's like a circus.
Exactly.
So at least at that point, if I'm someone who's operating from a place of love, and if I see that person saying something, I will, one, identify they're coming from a place of love and concern. They're thinking this person needs it, and that's where they're coming from. How can I acknowledge what they're saying? I don't have to agree to everybody's perspective. But how can
Right.
I acknowledge the fact that they come from such a place of genuine love and care for the other person? Because the minute
Okay.
you acknowledge somebody's perspective, right, they drop their weapons.
True.
But we try to prove a point. The minute you try to prove a point, the other person comes with their weapons. Now, something that was supposed to be a loving conversation becomes a war.
Very true. All the time.
And nobody ever wins in a war. The one who wins also loses. The one who loses anyways loses.
Right.
Right?
Right.
So if you're able to operate from a place of love, you will know that, okay, this person is coming from this place. How do I not get sucked into the drama there? But how do I respond in a loving way still? It does not mean I ignore them. I have to respond. But how do I respond in a manner that does not aggravate or add fuel to the fire already? Right?
Correct.
That awareness, if I have, now I'm not going to feel like, oh my gosh, they're attacking me. The fact that I feel somebody is attacking me, that means I've made the whole world around me, right?
Correct.
You asked a question about being self-centered. Self-centered is, I think everything around me is all about me. Merlin says a hi
Right.
to me, it's about me. Merlin doesn't say a hi to me, it's also because of me.
Correct.
But if I'm not being self-centered, then I'll say, Merlin didn't say a hi to me. She probably didn't notice me, or maybe she's busy, preoccupied with something. Maybe she's having a tough day. I'll not make it all about me.
It need not be about me.
It is never about me. Only I'm the hero for only my life. In your life, you are the hero. Likewise, for every single person, they are the heroes in their life, because hero means what? It's a central character of a story.
Right.
Now, in my life, there cannot be any other central character apart from me.
Correct.
But I have to remember, it is only in my life that I'm the central character. I cannot think somebody else has to also treat me like as if I am the central character of their life.
Right.
Then two inadequate people are trying to come together and form a relationship of love, which is not that. It is a relationship of dependency.
Correct.
Which means no matter how much you give, there is no end to it, because that person's love bucket is empty. My bucket is empty. We're both constantly struggling to fill each other's inadequacies. Nothing is ever enough to make two inadequate people feel adequate.
Right.
Right. So that's where the more you're aware about it, you will be able to operate from a place which is at least not going to add into the same thing.
Right.
Don't try to fix others. You have to remember,
Okay.
it's not your monkey to fix.
Yeah, that's what I've been thinking.
No, if you do that, so then what you're trying to do, you're trying to rub off your thought process onto the other person, whether or not they're ready for it.
Yeah, I get into an advising mode. This is how it has to be. This is how. So what else do I
then you have to,
acknowledge? I get it.
yeah, don't try to prove a point.
Okay.
Never try to prove a point with somebody, because the more you try to prove a point, the more they'll try to disprove the same point.
Correct.
You're creating resistance. Yeah, you're creating resistance.
Yeah.
So then it becomes hard work even more.
And it goes nowhere.
It definitely goes nowhere. So if you're operating from a place of being calm and from a place of love, right? I was talking to you about it being a dance, right? Two people, it takes two to dance together. You can't do a couple dance alone. If the other person stops dancing, what will you do?
I will also stop dancing.
Exactly. So you have to be that person who's not going to enter the dance first. Because if you start the dance, you will continue for the rest of your life in that equation.
True.
They can dance. You have an option whether you want to join the dance or watch the dance or get absorbed by it or get irritated by it or be amused by it.
Okay, there are so many options. So many other options.
So many other options.
Right.
Notice that it is their life story. Each one of us are here for a different purpose, for figuring out something. So in my journey, I might have figured the aspect of love to a certain degree. In their life, they might have figured it to a certain degree. I cannot assume or have an expectation that everybody has to read where I have reached in terms of love.
Right.
There'll always be somebody much better and ahead of me. There'll always be somebody who's here. There'll always be somebody who's catching up. There are no, up and down levels per se. just the way we are at this point in time in life, based on several factors.
Right. So right now, I understand how we need to feel or how we feel when we operate from a place of love, and what are the beliefs that we need to hold when we operate from a place of love. Just like we practice going to gym to maintain our fitness, physical fitness, what is that we need to practice in order to practice self-love? I understand.
No self-love, practice love.
Practice love. Yes. Are there any tools or techniques that
I think
can help?
the first things first that I always remind myself is if I have too much of attachment towards a person, that means I am not going to be operating from a place of love as much as I want to, because attachment in itself creates a sense of bond, which creates insufficiencies, insecurities, fears. What if the person is not there, wanting to be there, wanting to belong, and all of that stuff. So the first thing
Correct.
that I remind myself is, Narmada, if you truly, truly love, you have to be happy whenever they're happy, wherever they are.
Right.
Whether they're with you or not with you.
So that's how I need to feel about anyone in my life.
Yeah, if I have a sense of ownership rights, property rights, it's like you buy a car, now it's your car. If somebody else drives your car, you might get angry on it. But human love, if you're going to do it that way, like you're mine, no, then that's not love, that's possessiveness.
Correct.
And there's this, nice fancy dialogues that come up saying, I love you, that's why I'm possessive. No.
Yeah. In the name
It's
of love.
not true. In the name of love, what all we do in the name of love.
Yeah.
I shouldn't want to own somebody. If I want to own you, that means I'm insecure of losing you, no?
Correct.
If I'm insecure of losing you, then where is the point of love altogether? I'm already coming from a place of fear.
Right.
So I cannot do that. I have to be feeling sufficient for myself. And I'm not loving you so that you make me feel good about myself. I feel good and I love you because I have love within me and I'd love to share my love with you.
For a long time in my life, I had this misconception that it's not about being independent or dependent. It is about being interdependent in a relationship, being friendship or being with a partner or mother-daughter, mother-son, any two people. So now I think with this, even interdependency is being is actually operating from a place of fear that what if I might lose you, isn't it?
I don't know if I'd say that. Interdependency is a way of life. We're all in symbiotic relationships. We cannot exist by ourselves for ourselves all the time. There will be interdependencies.
Correct.
But if you make that interdependency as a condition for your ability to feel happy for yourself, that becomes a problem. For example, there's a dependency between rain and soil. You want it to rain so that the soil is fertile and you will have your crop. So
exactly.
That's great. And that dependency will be there. You can't remove that.
Yes.
Right? So, but if I say, oh my gosh, it didn't rain today, so I'm going to be grumpy and grouchy all the time, now that's not going to. I can't say I'll be grumpy because it's not raining. I'll see what all I can do to make it rain. But if I say because it didn't rain, I'm going to be grumpy all day, now that's not going to.
Right. Okay.
And also the other thing is, when you talk of dependencies, right, it's not that there's no love in this world. Some people feel like, oh, I'm lonely, I fought a war all alone, I've come all the way by myself. No, not possible. You have not noticed all the love that you got. That's it. Imagine in such a huge world, which is so fully populated, how is it possible for any of us to be alone at any point in time, unless utterly by choice?
True.
It's just not possible. So when I feel lonely, it means what? I was expecting love from a particular person. That person did not give me love, so I feel there is no love. But I have failed to notice all the other people who came along my way in my life, in some short or long format, have given me something of theirs.
Right.
I'm forgetting to remind myself or even recognize the fact that I have been touched by so many people in so many different ways, just because I was focused on that one person who did not love me the way I expected them to love me.
That is not a holistic thinking, isn't it?
Never is. But that's what happens. Because I'm
Yeah,
so driven by my dependency and expectancy from that person that I fail
yeah.
to see life at a higher level, that I fail to recognize love at a level that is much beyond my limited understanding or vision of it at this point.
Right.
I mean,
That's
if you
beautiful.
just look back at, yeah, and if you look back at your life, I'm sure you will find so many people who have knowingly or unknowingly filled your life with something that was very useful at that
Exactly.
given moment.
Exactly. I am here because of the support I've had from my family and my friends. And yeah, and I've also been in a situation where I've felt lonely and pathetic. Um, but right now, I can imagine how my life has gone through an entire journey with so many people, and how I ended up generalizing it for the entire world I was in. That's, yeah, it's funny.
Yeah. So realize that interdependency is a need, but interdependency only with a particular person is not necessarily how it is going to be.
Correct.
For example, there's a husband and wife, they're married, and in parenting, let's say, for example, the wife expects the husband to do his role. He may not be doing it, or the other way around, whichever way it is. Uh, that does not mean you don't have help. You don't have help from that person who is legally, morally obligated to give their role in that particular thing. But if you say your life itself does not have love because of that one person, then you're missing the point. Because then you're
Yeah.
missing recognizing that there are so many other people around you who you could possibly get help from, who are actually there for you in their own small ways.
Yeah, there is a general terminology people use. As a mother, you need to be doing this. As a father, you need to be doing this. And as partners, you too need to be doing this. That's too much conditioning that we have gone through in this world, right? So how do we bring it to our awareness that at this point of time, this is my requirement, and uh, I need to find a way to just fulfill it. How do
Exactly that. Just know what is your requirement and find a way to fulfill it without putting a clause that it should come from this particular person.
exactly?
What you said is exactly what you need to think of. Just remove the last clause in the sentence, which makes all the difference, saying, I want it to come from this person only.
Right. So
Why
ultimately, the
not?
work has to be done no matter what. So
It may come from this person, it may come from somebody else in a different
yeah,
shape and form. We
yeah,
have this concept of best friends also. No, she's my best friend. She has helped me the most. Without her, I can't imagine my life. Fair, great, you've had such a bond. But that does not mean that tomorrow, if that person is not there, your life will finish.
right.
If you have truly loved somebody, their love should keep you going for the rest of your life.
Correct.
That's how powerful love is. I used to think, in my own case, I think when I was a kid, I used to always pray that, God, whenever my father has to leave the earth, please make sure I die along with him because I can't live without him. But as life happens, my father had to go before me. And then I thought, oh my God, daddy is gone. What do I do now? He's the one person who really loves me unconditionally. Maybe I just have to not live anymore. What do I do? That's when my best friend called and he just said, the fact that he's left you behind, I'm sure he has a purpose that he's left you behind, no? And who do you think is going to carry forward his legacy if you don't do it? It suddenly
Uh-huh.
put a hold to all my plans of doing something to myself. I said, that's true. That's a purpose beyond myself. And then when I started living, it's been, more than 5 years, 5 to 7 years now. But today I always feel my father's love and I feel it in such powerful ways that I actually tell people that he loved me in such amazing ways that I always am filled with love just because of the way he's loved me. The man is not here physically with me, but his love continues to exist. Today, I've grown to realize that love is that powerful where it is not just something that I feel when they're there, but it is something that they've gifted me and I can cherish it and work with it and run with it for the rest of my life. for as
It's
long as I
beautiful
run.
how you reframed the love your father has given you and how you have handled the situation of his absence from a place where you thought it was never possible. I think this is a lot to reflect on in many of our lives. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Pleasure is all mine. I think to be able to love is the most beautiful gift that we can give, not just for others, but more so for ourselves.
Yeah,
And
right.
it doesn't have boundaries and it doesn't have limitations. It's all encompassing, it's all inclusive. Imagine you get a travel package which is all inclusive at a great steal deal.
Talking about how beautiful it is to love yourself and hence being able to love everyone else. Life is not
It's
always
being in a state of love.
Yeah, it's being in a state of love. So, yeah, to be in a state of love is so beautiful. But love is life is not a bed of roses all the time. There is all kind of emotions to it. So we are angry, we are frustrated, we are irritated. Um, this is going to be part of our lives, right? We can't ignore that part. That's going to be with us no matter what. So at that point of time, say, let me give you a scenario. I go to a place, I find it messy, and I get irritated. So if I'll have to operate from a place of love, how do you think I would do that?
So you see a place and you get angry. What makes you get angry?
The place being messy.
Yeah. So
Triggers
what is your assumption that you have made about that mess that is making you angry?
that someone has made the place messy.
So you have already pointed a finger towards somebody, that somebody has made the place messy, and one other assumption that you have made along with that.
That the place is messy?
Yeah, the place is messy, and the fact that somebody has made the place messy, what assumption have you made about them?
That they are messy.
And
that they are not respectful of someone else's space.
and that's what is creating the anger.
Right.
The assumption that they are not respecting my criteria is what is generating the anger, not the mess.
Correct.
You see the mess, you want to clean up, that is one thing. You see the mess and you think to yourself that somebody is disrespecting me and deliberately creating a mess to irritate me, that's where the anger comes from. So you're not operating from a place of love.
Exactly.
Okay. I'm not saying you have to be okay and not say anything to anybody. I'm not saying that. So you could be operating from a place of love. And if, let's say children are creating a mess, you tell them that, what, this mess is there and it has to be cleaned up because, it's for your sake also more than mine that you live in a nice, clean environment. So you explain to them. But the only thing is not to get carried away with your emotions.
Correct.
If you let emotions get the better of you, then relationship is going to go down the drain any which way.
Right. So what you're trying to say is the emotions crossing your mind is okay, but don't draw meaning out of it and don't go inward.
Don't get swept in emotions.
Right. Okay.
When you're extremely emotional, that is a point in time where you have to learn to not speak more than what is required.
Right. Correct.
Because the more you say, the more damage it's going to create.
Exactly. Yeah. That I agree.
Yeah. And sometimes all of that might not work also. Sometimes respectfully, sometimes it might not work. So you raise your volume, you tell something, you enforce it a little more strictly as well. But see, that's the thing, right? We think that love means you only have to talk in a particular way, then only I'll accept you. Which again is tricky, right? So you have to remember that you love the person even when you're angry, and the other person also should be able to remember that you love them when you're angry. How? When I'm communicating my anger, I'm not attacking you. I'm telling you what needs to happen, and I'm talking about it without looking down upon you without making you feel like I'm going to leave you and go, without making you feel insecure. I'm upset
So in
with
that
what has
case,
happened.
my statement would be more objective than being subjective.
Yes, so I am going to, even in my peak of anger, if I can remember that I still love them, and if I can tell them in the middle of a fight, if I can still tell them that, you know what, I'm telling you all this because I care enough for you, and I hope you do understand that. So I don't use any derogatory remarks or derogatory comments or damaging statements, but I'm sticking to the issue at hand. Now I'm still operating from that place of love. And then when I ask them that question, I hope you do understand where I'm coming from. And if they say yes to it, now I know that my love is still landing on them.
Okay.
And the ratio, if I'm mostly shouting at people and expect them to understand my love, it won't happen.
Yeah.
You see, it's like a bank balance, right? You can't withdraw more than what you deposit.
Absolutely.
You have to deposit so much that once in a while, if you make a withdrawal, it should work.
That's a beautiful metaphor, right?
And for others, you know, who are on the receiving end, you see some people might speak in a certain way, and you think, how can this person speak like this? They don't love me. And somebody who speaks sweet talks their way through your life, you think they're really worth it. Not necessarily. Each person's language of love is different. Right. So are you ready to receive love, or are you ready to receive love only if it comes in this particular gift box with that red ribbon on it? Otherwise, you say, no, it's not.
Yeah.
Then you're
That's
making
what we
it
do.
difficult to get it.
Yeah. So it's actually beautiful how you mentioned the beliefs behind self-love and the value system that we need to carry and how we need to behave while operate out of love, operate from a place of love and not from a place of fear or inadequacy. And I feel personally, I've got my structure to implement self-love or to say love
Love.
in my own life.
Lovely.
Thank you very, very much, Narmada. This
Most
is a
welcome.
privilege and such a pleasure for me to interview you. And thank you very, very much for your time.
Pleasure is all mine. Thank you. And you know, the other thing I was just, as you were speaking about love and, you know, feeling that, one thing that I also would like to add to it is don't be hard on yourself if you ever move away from that zone of love. Because
Yeah,
sometimes, you know, the more harder you are on yourself, the tougher it becomes to love.
true.
So it's okay sometimes to just step out momentarily. It could be a lapse here and there, but operate in a way that will help you come back to that place of love. The more critical you are about yourself or somebody else, the lesser you will be able to operate with love. Your
Yeah, that's again
critic,
loving myself, right? I mean, I shouldn't be
exactly.
critical about myself. It's okay to have a realization,
Yeah.
but not stay there for a long time.
Yeah.
Correct?
So make sure that you push yourself, but
Right.
don't be so hard on yourself that you break. If
Right.
you are not going to push yourself, if you're not going to catch yourself when you're getting carried away, then you're not actually, what would a best friend do? A best friend would tell you when you're right, would also correct you when you're wrong, right? And
Right.
that's what a
Right.
best friend is for. They'll be that mirror who will give you the straight feedback. So give yourself that feedback and be stern with yourself so that you push yourself, but don't be to an extent where it'll either break you, or on the other side, don't be so overly you know, happy with yourself that you forget to push yourself at all.
Yeah,
Then
it's a
you will get
balance.
stagnant. Yeah. So push. When you need a kick, give yourself a kick. When you need a kiss, give yourself a kiss. But do both. Don't say only this and not that. The thing is, when you get into the battles of right and wrong, love is lost.
Yeah. I mean, which is the ultimate focus.
Yes.
Right.
So
Correct.
don't get into the battles of right and wrong so much, because my right is your left is my right. Things are all a matter of perspective. See what needs to happen. Whoever is the underdog in a particular situation, if they need your help, you might see what is required there, not what you want to give so that you feel accepted by them, but what is actually required in that situation for them. And when it is your own self, if you find yourself, you know, in a different, not okay moment, catch yourself and help yourself come back to your zone, rather than think that, oh my gosh, I failed as a human being. So don't make generalized statements about yourself or others which are negative, which are going to pull your confidence down. Feedback
Right.
is always about that situation that needs to be handled better, but not that the person is inadequate or broken in any way.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Thank you very much.
the other most welcome. And there's just one more thing that just occurred to me is forgiveness is also, again, very, very important to feel love. And we usually think when I'm forgiving somebody, it feels like I'm doing you a favor. I'm forgiving you, so I'm the big one. But no, forgiveness has nothing to do with the other person. It has everything to do with myself. When I say I forgive, what I'm essentially telling myself is, I've moved past the situation, I've taken the learnings from there, and I'm ready to move to the next chapter and heal myself, rather than dwell in it, harbor negative feelings towards somebody or towards myself and feel bitter about it. So I am not forgiving you. I am forgiving. When I say I forgive, I'm saying I'm ready to move past that.
Right.
That does not
Right.
mean I will go back and become friends with you. If I want to, I can be. There's nothing wrong with it. But that does not mean every time I forgive, I go back and repeat the same thing again. I learn,
Right.
so I maintain a healthy distance rather than, overdoing something or again regretting the same thing again. Being aware of my expectations of others, my expectations of myself, being grounded and realistic about them. And if I make a mistake, be ready to say sorry anytime.
Absolutely. And forgive yourself first. That's the whole point, isn't it?
Yeah, forgiveness is just being ready to move past. So whether it is yourself or somebody else, it doesn't matter. It's like love, it's not self. That self and others is where that whole divide happens. So forgiveness
Right.
is, I'm ready to move past that incident. I don't want to hold on to that.
Right.
Love is, I'm in that state of love where I'm feeling that sense of love. So, love creates a sense of bliss within me. So I'm ready to share that within myself and outside of myself too. I'm not feeling inadequate and I'm not looking at you to make me feel complete. God has manufactured me as a complete being, and I'm ready to experience that in such a state that I can also share it with somebody else along the way.
That's beautiful. It's just not for me, it's for everyone else as well. And that's actually being in a place of love and operating from a place of love. And I think if one can do that, it's going to be very liberating.
And more so, one can do that when the other person is not operating from a place of love. It is even more important that you operate from a place of love.
Right.
Because
Right.
it's easy when the other person is not operating from a place of love. You also move
Yes,
out of the place of love. There'll be two people doing the same dance.
exactly.
When you see the other person is not operating from a place of love, that's when you have to remind yourself, even more than before, that you have to stay put in your place of love so that you know what is required to be done as a response, but not as a reaction.
Yeah, that's beautiful, because to operate from a place of love when the other person is also operating from a place of love is easier.
Yes.
The actual challenge is when there is a discrepancy, and really practice to operate from a place of love.
And you know what? When you're in that place of love, right, it becomes so amazing that you don't want to move out of that zone.
Oh yeah, I can feel it already.
Yeah. Just sit with yourself for a few minutes every day just to feel that sense of love, not just from yourself, but from all those unexpected people who have somehow touched your life and you've never noticed it.
True.
Like
I
that
think
cab
that's
driver who
one
was, sorry?
thing that when I was asking about what can we practice, how can we practice, just sitting with myself and reflecting on how grateful I should be for many things in life is where I should start. And
It's like
that itself.
I remind myself that 7 years back, it was pouring cats and dogs, and I was not getting a cab, and I had to come back home. There was an auto driver who dropped me all the way back home, and he put the meter on, and he was ready to take only what the meter showed. In that kind of a heavy downpour, where everybody was asking twice and three times the rate, he asked me exactly what the meter showed.
Really, that
I
happened?
was so it did, and I was so touched by it that I gave him much more than what I would have given somebody else who would ask me for that twice or thrice the rate. just because I was so touched by his kindness at such a crucial hour where I would have been stranded but for him. And that graciousness that he showed made me feel even more gracious and give him something more than what I would have given to the other person.
It's beautiful that happened.
And this is like 7-8 years back. So trust me, if you actually sit and think of it, you will find so many times that you have been touched by some random person's kindness that you may have forgotten over the period of time because you're remembering something else busily.
Oh, yeah.
If you look for hurt, you'll find it. If you look for love, you'll find it. What are you looking for?
It is true. And that's a beautiful question to end this interview and reflect on each and everything that you said. Thank you very, very much for your time, Narmada. And it's
Pleasure's
such
all mine.
It's a treasure. Whatever you said was gold, and it's going to share value with so many other people. It's just not. Thank you very, very much.
It's your love that helps me also respond to that. So thank you so very much. It's been my pleasure. Lovely conversation. Thank you for the conversation itself.
Thank you.